Good evening. We bring you urgent updates from Indonesia, where access to food remains a growing concern despite national progress on hunger reduction. While undernourishment has dropped to 8.5%, over 68 districts still face critical food insecurity due to climate shocks, uneven agricultural output, and soaring food prices. In eastern provinces like Papua and Maluku, food costs are up to 95% higher than national averages, crippling household budgets and worsening urban and rural poverty divides. Severe weather events, driven by climate change, displaced 8.7 million people in 2023 alone, disrupting crop yields and further straining food supply chains. Meanwhile, high shipping costs and poor infrastructure are choking food access across the archipelago. Indonesia's new Free Nutritious Meal initiative aims to support 90 million vulnerable children and mothers, but the challenge remains how to make food accessible, affordable, and equitable for all Indonesians. We'll continue to follow this developing story. Stay with us.
Indonesia has made commendable progress in reducing poverty and food insecurity. It now ranks 77 out of 125 countries on the Global Hunger Index, with undernourishment falling to 8.5 in 2023. Yet beneath these national averages, deeper challenges remain. 68 out of over 500 districts are still food insecure. Climate-related disasters surged by nearly 40% in 2023, disrupting crops and livelihoods. At the same time, food prices remain volatile, particularly in eastern provinces like Papua and Maluku, where basic staples can cost nearly double the national average. These ongoing shocks expose structural weaknesses in food access. Indonesia's food system doesn't operate in isolation. It's shaped by environmental pressures like land degradation and deforestation, social inequalities such as gender exclusion and urban-rural divides, and infrastructure gaps that raise distribution costs. Moreover, limited digital literacy among farmers and policy fragmentation slows down the adoption of smarter, data-driven agricultural practices. What this means is that food security is not just about growing enough crops, it's about who can access them, when, and at what cost. Given this complexity, relying solely on conventional approaches won't suffice. We need smarter, integrated systems rooted in real-time data and inclusive digital tools to navigate the challenges ahead. Indonesia has committed to achieving sustainable development goal to zero hunger, and efforts like the 2025 Free Nutritious Meal programs are steps in the right direction. But reaching this goal requires tackling not just availability, but access, the most immediate barrier for vulnerable populations. From higher inter-island shipping costs to urban food deserts, food access is where inequality and inefficiency hits hardest. That's why our proposal focuses on improving access, because only by understanding and addressing these local disparities can Indonesia build a more resilient, inclusive food system.
Indonesia's inclusion among 62 lower-income net food importing countries, supported by the FAO's Food Imports Financing Facility, now managed by the International Monetary Fund, highlights its continued vulnerability to global supply shocks. Conflicts and trade disruptions remain major risks to its national food access. Short-term actions like improving fertilizer availability and use efficiency can help buffer its agri-food systems. However, longer-term resilience will rely heavily on data-driven policy-making and digital innovation. In this regard, the FAO's hand-in-hand geospatial platform offers a powerful tool to enhance investment targeting. By combining geospatial and socioeconomic data, it enables policymakers to allocate resources where they are most needed and most impactful. Similarly, the 1000 Digital Villages initiative showcases how digital technologies and e-commerce can transform rural livelihoods and improve market access. Research, such as the 2017 study by Velasova et al., highlights the root causes of food insecurity in rural Indonesia, linking food access to gender, education, income, and agricultural practices. Over half of the households studied in North Sumatra were moderately or severely food insecure. These are precisely the kinds of insights that AI can amplify, allowing us to move from fragmented snapshots to real-time predictive understanding. In the absence of robust time series on food intake, poverty figures are sometimes used as a proxy for food insecurity. But this approach misses key quality and access dimensions. AI can help bridge this gap by combining multiple data sources for a more complete picture. In summary, integrating existing indicators with AI and digital platforms can empower Indonesia to develop smarter, more responsive strategies that align the goals of agriculture, health, and environmental sustainability.
Now, let's look at what current databases lack. Most food access databases only provide national level averages, but in reality, local food access varies drastically. A World Bank study found that in Papua and Maluku, basic food prices like wheat and sugar were 95% higher than in Java. When policies rely on this aggregated data, they miss the real struggles of the most vulnerable. But it's not just geography. Current databases also fail in 4 key areas. First, there's no real-time data to track sudden shocks. World Bank microdata updates just once a year. Second, informal food economies are invisible. Street vendors feed 70% of the urban poor, but are not captured in datasets like FAO stat. Third, they ignore physical access, like whether there's even a road to the market. And finally, they miss out on social access, like when gender roles affect who gets to eat, or when indigenous communities face cultural exclusion. Without all this data, we risk designing policies that ignore those who are already vulnerable. To fill these data gaps, we propose 4 innovations. First, voice-based AI chatbots on apps like Line and WhatsApp can collect real-time food prices and disruption data, even from low-literacy remote communities. Second, through photo-based food diaries, citizens can document what they eat and where they struggle to access food. This captures cultural and gender-related barriers that numbers alone can't. Third, we invite locals to map their own food systems, like markets, gardens, and street vendors, using simple paper maps, ensuring that the overlooked groups are represented. And finally, we use AI and satellite imagery to map physical barriers to food, like damaged roads or isolated farmlands, especially in underdeveloped areas like Papua and Maluku.
Ensuring access to nutritious food is essential for public health. Better nutrition reduces healthcare costs by improving overall public health, which translates into greater workforce productivity, enabling individuals to contribute more effectively to economic growth. In this way, strengthening food systems is not only a matter of welfare, but also a strategic investment in national development and economic resilience. To ensure the success of this integrated food security program, collaboration across key stakeholders is essential, namely the Ministries of Agriculture, Health and Environment, farmers, consumers, as well as research and development companies. Now, let's reframe our proposed innovations under 3 key areas of the food system: production, distribution, and consumption. Under production, we utilize satellite and AI imagery to include unregistered street vendors and identify physical food access barriers. We also support livestock farmers through machine learning models that forecast livestock feed prices, guide government subsidies, and also promote cost-effective solutions. Additionally, it is important to note that farmers must have reliable access to markets so that increased production translates into real economic opportunity. As for distribution, we gather real-time data through AI chatbots and mobile surveys to detect price surges and food disruptions. Community-led mapping of food systems brings marginalized voices into the conversation. And finally, under consumption, we empower citizens to document their meals using photo diaries. This captures not just what people eat, but the cultural and social factors behind their food choices. The execution timeline and cost of the program will be as follows. In year 1, the government agencies will collaborate with R&D companies to develop enhanced AI chatbots and machine learning models with a budget of 180K. In year 2, 160K will be allocated to implement the developed tools and launch campaigns that encourage the use of chatbot surveys and photographic food diaries. During this phase, Residents will also begin mapping their local food systems using simple paper-based methods. The collected data will then be integrated into existing databases, enabling decision makers to craft accurate evidence-based policies, such as providing subsidies to farmers when necessary. And finally, in year 3, about 160K will be spent on evaluating the effectiveness of the program by monitoring variables like average household, medical expenses, household income, etc.